Kar Shalom, welcome to Heinrich Edgecome Art. We are painting a simple, whimsical, dancing skeleton today. We use Prussian Blue, Naples Yellow, and a touch of Hansa Yellow Medium and Scarlet Lake. We added a touch of neutral tint to create some deeper darks. You can, of course, use any of the primaries that you have available. The materials are listed in the description below. The paper is flat on the table, taped to a plastic board. Ensure that the tape is secure on all sides to prevent seepage. We used a Herend cat's tongue or flower brush to start with. We are working wet on dry. Use Naples Yellow for the first layer of the moon. This will create a wet on wet environment for the following layers. You don't really want a flat, even moon, so this wet environment will give you the opportunity to add touches of the coral mix and splashes of Scarlet Lake for warmth. You can then charge it with a few dots of the purple mix for shadows and texture. Use the tip of your brush to smooth the dots out a bit where the paint spreads to blend the little starbursts into the background. The color combination used gives a variety of new color mixes. The Scarlet Lake and Naples Yellow, for example, give you a beautiful pastel-like coral pink. Mixing Prussian Blue and Scarlet Lake gives you a lovely dark purple. Now your moon has a beautiful textured surface as a base. So now let your painting dry thoroughly. The moon has dried and now you can wet the entire background. Use Prussian and the purple mix for the background. Paint in circular strokes around the elements to create darker areas on the outside and lighter areas on the inside. You can add a few strokes of neutral tint to create the darkest areas on the outside. And don't be afraid to use enough pigment. Remember, watercolor fades quite a lot when it dries. When you're done with your sky, then let your painting dry again. The darker outsides have now placed the spotlight on your elements, which have lighter surroundings. Perfect for that light and dark contrast that you need to make certain elements stand out. You can now use neutral tint with touches of Prussian for the bats. To allow the bats to dry, we move on to the cape. We used a mix of Scarlet Lake and Hansa Yellow Medium for the cape. While you wait for the cape to dry, you can paint the eyes, nose and mouth of the skeleton if you want. Let everything dry again. Here we are using the coral mix of Naples Yellow and Scarlet Lake to add another layer to the coat. The transparency of the watercolor allows the original layer to shine through. Use your brush lightly when you add the second layer to prevent lifting of the first layer. While you wait for that layer to dry, move on to glaze the moon with some Hansa yellow medium. Glazing is adding a very transparent layer of paint to a dried layer to give complexity to the color. Here you don't need to worry if the paint from the bats seeps into the moon a little. It just adds texture to the moon. When you're done, let it dry again. To add contrast and interest to the coat, we start with pure Scarlet Lake for the outside of the coat. Add some neutral tint to create a deeper red-brown, and then wait for it to settle. Add more neutral tint and Prussian Blue to the bats while you wait. One can start with a stronger pigment for the bats, of course, but that would just give one flat color. Layering with more transparent coats will give you some variation in the tone of your painted areas. Use the scarlet and then the neutral tint to emphasize the hem of the cape. If you haven't done it yet, you can now add the eyes, nose and mouth of the skeleton, because you want it to dry properly before you paint the skeleton. You need shadow areas behind the rib cage, so use the orange mix to create a wet environment and then charge it lightly with neutral tint. Use more of the orange to give your coat a second transparent glaze to deepen the color. To give the outside of the coat a velvety look, add a layer of Scarlet Lake. Leave a few areas unpainted to give natural light and dark areas. And now you can let the painting dry again. So now we mixed some Scarlet Lake, Hansa Yellow and Prussian Blue to create a soft chocolate brown. Use Naples Yellow to create a wet-on-wet environment, and then add a bit of the brown mix for shadowing and texture. Watercolor takes a lot of patience. You have to make sure that your areas are dry before you work with them again. Use some of the coral mix to glaze over the foreground. The skeleton is dancing on the earth, hence the rounded horizon line. And that's it, a dancing skeleton for your Halloween decorations. Please like, subscribe and leave us a comment. Thank you so much for watching. Vaya con Dios.